O'Reilly. You need parts? O'Reilly Auto Parts has parts. Need them fast? We've got fast. No matter what you need, we have thousands of professional parts people doing their part to make sure you have it. Product availability. Just one part that makes O'Reilly stand apart. The professional parts people.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
You ever get that feeling the walls closing in, the concrete jungle suffocating you? You crave some wide open spaces, the chance to connect with nature, maybe in a spot all your own. Well, head over to land.com. They've got ranches, forests, mountains, streams, you name it. Search by acreage. You can search by location. You can search by the kind of hunting and fishing you're dreaming of. Land.com. It is where the adventure begins. There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store, or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today.
Hey, it's the Hunting Collective. Welcome. We're on episode number 68. It's a good one today. I'm pretty excited about this one. We've got an interview segment of the show. We've got Tyler Sharp, the editor-in-chief of a magazine, a really well-done and thoughtful magazine called Modern Huntsman. In that we're got a lion attack story, some other crazy Africa stories from Tyler, and went pretty deep on redefining the narrative of hunting, which is one of the missions of Modern Huntsman. But before we do that, we had our new editor-in-chief, Anthony Licata, on to talk about exactly that. Do we need to redefine the hunting narrative? Who gets to do that? How do we communicate that? It's a little bit of a complicated topic, but it is a good thing to aspire to. But it's a complicated thing to communicate. So we're going to cover that. We also started talking about not only hunting dick moves, but office dick moves. And our engineer, Phil, gave a couple of really good ones. So you're going to want to stick around for that. But before we get to all of that, First Light has a really cool new film out called Ursus, Idaho. It's a spot and stalk spring bear hunt. It's a really cool film. I just got done watching it. It's First Light's Paul Peterson. He drew one of the most coveted spring black bear tags in the lower 48. And he's a former elk guide, and is a Wisconsin native. It's his first bear hunt, and it's pretty damn entertaining. So go to firstlight.com and watch that film, Ursus, Idaho, with Paul Peterson. It's pretty cool. I like it. I think you will too. So without further ado, we're going to get to episode number 68. Let's go.
I guess I grew up on an older road. A pedal to the metal, always did what I was told. Until I found out that my brand new clothes came secondhand from the rich kids next door. When I grew up fast, I guess I grew up mean. There's 1,000 things inside my head I wish I ain't seen. And now I just wander through a real bad dream, or feeling like I'm coming apart at the seams. But thank you, Jack Daniels, oh, number 7.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Hunting Collective. I, of course, am Ben O'Brien, and you're going to be hearing this podcast on July 2nd. We're in July, Licata.
Feels like it.
Yeah.
Sunny, warm.
It's Montana. Welcome to Montana, by the way.
Thank you.
You're moving here like the rest of us meat eaters.
I am. I'm moving here in about a month, so I can't wait.
Yeah, you have some young children that are excited to explore all that Montana has to offer.
Absolutely. Took my kids out fishing this weekend. They came for a visit, check out the new hometown, and I just want to get here while there's still lots to do.
There very much. Till the smoke comes in August. Now, we're not supposed to, people tell me I'm not supposed to talk so glowingly about Bozeman all the time. So it's also very cold in the winter.
It snowed 2 days
Yeah.
before I got here earlier this week, so keep that in mind.
Yeah, I got pulled over by a cop 2 months ago. So it's, there's some bad things in Bozeman as well. So I just try to make sure everybody understands it can be a terrible place.
That's awful.
It's awful. Don't come. Like the ski resorts are crowded. Yellowstone, there's just buffalo everywhere in the road even sometimes.
How do you even drive through?
You can't even drive through these buffalo. It's terrible. Hey, Phil. Phil's back.
I'm back. How much hate mail did you get?
No hate mail, Phil.
None? No, that's good.
I was wondering if you got recognized anywhere, your voice.
Yeah, I think I was just telling you beforehand. I was grocery shopping, and I asked the cashier. Well, I told her I'd like plastic bags, and she said, "Oh, hold on a minute. The Hunting Collective?"
Yep.
Yep.
Of course she did.
I said, "You know it."
I try. You know it, lady. I'm Phil.
It's Mr. Taylor to you.
All right, perfect. Well, that means you can stay on the show.
Awesome, great.
That's it for you for today. Thanks for joining us.
Cool. I'll see you later.
Phil. We're going to talk about, I would call them some heavy topics, as we always try to do here on the show. But I'm trying to figure out. I was trying to figure out a thing we would do. It's the off season. There's no hunting going on, so we can't tell hunting stories. So it leaves a lot of dead air.
Absolutely.
Can't tell fishing stories. They're boring. We'd just be like, we were fishing and then we caught a fish. That pretty much it's pretty much the whole story. So we can't tell fishing stories. But I'm trying to figure out a thing that I can do, like top bullets, top hunters of all time, to get everybody interested in debating about things. But I'm not. It's been a long week and I have no idea. I was going to plan something, but I don't have anything.
Yeah.
Did you come up with anything, Licata?
In the
No
4
pressure.
minutes since you asked me to think about it?
Yeah. Yes.
No, right? It's this is the kind of thing that's real hard to rank, but it's fun, right? It's fun to think about that stuff. I mean, that's part of the fun of arguing about it. I mean, I have my top stuff. I mean, I think top things I love to do, whether they're what you love to do, I don't really care. They're my top things. I think they're the best.
Oh, that's what he said. Top reasons why my things are better than your
Yeah,
things.
right.
Maybe top podcasts. I can think of 5 really good ones.
Yeah.
They're all on the MeatEater network. It's weird that they're all the best. It's funny. So anybody, write in to thc@meateater.com and help me out. I'm trying to come up with some real catchy ways to rank and debate about pretty inane topics over the summer when we're bored. So please write in and give us some ideas. I was gonna whip out some real cool thing, but I couldn't think of anything. So I apologize.
When you are stumped, that's the thing. Make your audience do the work for you, Ben.
That's right.
Exactly.
Exactly.
That's the way to do it.
It's called being resourceful, people. And this is a weekly show. Sometimes I get tired. Okay. So thank you. THC@themeateater.com, please. We're gonna start this conversation off. We have an interview in the interview portion of the show. We have Tyler Sharp, who is the well-dressed editor-in-chief of Modern Huntsman. Modern Huntsman is a glossy, wonderfully put together hunting magazine, which I believe is in its 3rd volume. And that volume is on wildlife management. It should be out by now. You should be able to go pick it up. What makes it interesting is that its stated mission is to redefine the hunting narrative. Now, boy, that's a tall task.
Yeah.
Why not set your sights high, I say.
Yeah. Big ambition.
Big ambition. I once maybe thought that I could be the one. Since I've thought better of it. Tried to be funnier, maybe to fill the holes. So we're gonna get into that. But we had a gentleman write in, and always you people that write in have hard to pronounce last names, so that upsets me. But this fellow's name is Andy D. Rousseau. Sorry if I mispronounced that, Andy. But he wrote in. He said, "You asked for some feedback, and here I am giving it to you. I hope you, Ben, will continue to interview people from the industry, even in different views from yourself and your style. Folks like Michael Waddell, Ted Nugent, Chuck Adams, Fred Eichler, so on and so forth." I've had Fred Eichler on, so go back and listen to that one. But the other ones would be interesting. More of these stories and these amazing people that have different perspectives and different ways of looking at hunting in the industry would be interesting. And Andy's from Rogers, Arkansas. Yeah, man, I'm into that idea.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what it's all about. I mean, different perspectives. That's one of the cool things about what we do. the way I do it and was raised to do it and do it where I'm from is different from someone else's experience.
That's right. And that's why I named this thing the Hunting Collective, because I was like, well, if we can somehow learn the collective perspectives and understand different parts of our community, why people think the way they do and why they act the way they do and why they value what they value, then maybe we can be better at thinking about hunting and analyzing the way we do things. So thank you for writing in, Andy, and that's a good bridge to the topic of modern huntsmen and the stated purpose of redefining the hunting narrative. And at first we could just say, Licata, do you feel like we need to redefine the hunting narrative?
I'm not even sure what that means exactly. You know, is there a hunting narrative that we all agree on? You know, does that mean really what we do or how we explain it to people? I'm not quite sure what that means.
Yeah, and Tyler explains it from his perspective, and he explains it well. But I think that from his perspective, the narrative is the narrative that's being imposed on our community rather than the narrative that we've created, right? So the narrative being imposed on our community, it has to do with trophy hunting. It has to do with murdering animals, like the negative stereotypical things that are applied to hunting. That's what he's talking about. That's redefining that narrative, but also redefining what hunting means inside the community and kind of shining the spotlight around and seeing what's there, right? Seeing, oh, what's over there? There's a guy doing something that I don't like, personally don't like and don't respect. Is it my job to call that person out, or is it my job to do what I think is right and show by example? So I've run into this, I'm sure you have in your career. You kind of run into Steve's analogy, Rinello's analogy, which is shooting holes in the boat. If you're in the boat with somebody and they're shooting holes in it, you're certainly gonna make them walk the plank at some level. So you have that analogy. But the other analogy is, what makes you the judge and jury? What makes you the person to raise your hand up and say, I'm right or I'm wrong, or this is right or this is wrong? How do we do that?
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's I think it's obvious, right? I think the shooting holes in the boat is a very clear, very smart way to think about it, right? But it does get a little bit tricky when there's some things that there are people who are never going to like the hunting narrative. No matter what we do, we could do it in a way that you know, we think is the best possible narrative for us. People are still going to hate it. That's not to say that we shouldn't, you know, care about that narrative. We do. We all know that hunters are a very small minority in this country, and we need the public to, if not support us, at least respect it and let us do our thing. You know, so that's
it's embodied. We just had the super top secret content project that we did yesterday, and it's embodied in the conversation around like, how do we limit our communication, and who is the one to be able to say like, don't do that.
Yeah. And
can we, I'm not a big grip and grin guy anymore. I was at one time. I am not now. And I've said my piece on why I think that needs to be the way. But I think that argument just kind of embodies this conversation.
Yeah, that's right. It's a pretty tall order for someone or a small group of people to say, hey, this is what the hunting narrative should be. This is what it should look like to the outside world. As you said earlier, it's the hunting collective, right? We all come from different backgrounds, and shooting holes in the boat should be pretty obvious. But there's some things that, hey, it might not be my thing, but if it's done in a way that is respectful to the resource, is good for the environment, you know, kind of embodies what hunting's all about, even if it's not my thing. You know, I don't know. Do we need to worry about what someone else thinks about that?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's a generational, you know, Tyler and I are about the same age, mid-30s guys. Like, it might just be a generational thing. We feel the pressure as folks whose parents didn't have that same pressure. You know, my dad didn't have the pressure of social media and the pressure of like, how are people going to take in this image that I've shared or this? He didn't. I mean, there was the brag board at the local gas station and the back of his truck when he checked the deer in, and then whoever saw it in the garage before they cut it up and ate it. So there just wasn't that pressure to continually think about how we speak about hunting or what we do. And it can be I don't want to beat people over the head with these ideas, but man, when somebody like Tyler comes along, and you'll hear in a minute, he says some things that even for my taste, was like, whoa, all right, cool. I'm glad, like, that's pretty blunt. That, to make an analogy of, like, sometimes when you get old, you should stay on the porch and let somebody else figure out how to go forward. I mean, that's it. People, I know people will get prickly about that when I heard him say it. I'm like, I know Tyler, I know him to be a good dude. So I'm like, oh, he's making his point. He's making it pretty firmly.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty tough thing to say to people, who have been there before you, have been doing this a long time, who have, in one way or another, advanced hunting and been the backbone of it, to tell them, well, your time has passed the way you did it. You should just stay on the porch. Man, I don't know. I don't have the personal feelings. I feel like I could tell anybody that.
Yeah. In the mission statement for Modern Huntsman, it says, it's born out of frustration with the way hunting is often misrepresented today. This publication is told from the perspective of hunting purists and the diplomatically minded, unaltered by the skews of mainstream media, corporate interests, or misinformed emotional rants. I mean, what's your reaction to that?
Big ambition.
That's
sure.
Big ambition.
It's look, without knowing, that kind of sets you up to, like, you better have good arguments for everything you're saying and what's right and what's wrong. I myself, like, I'm pretty clear about what is good for hunting and what isn't, and doing things in an ethical, fair chase way, and always putting the resource first, but when I think about things that how hunting is portrayed, or if it looks bad to the outside, I feel a little uncomfortable making that call for someone. I mean, if somebody's doing it the right way and someone takes it the wrong way, I'm not sure that I want to tell them not to do it. At my kids' preschool, they have this, I'm talking about my kids' preschool, right?
So I like it. Where's he going now?
This is where I get all my knowledge, right? But they have this thing where they say, don't yuck someone else's yum, right? Some kid pulls out their lunch and some other kid's like, ew, yeah, that's gross. And, the kid's eating it and he likes it. And I feel like that's kind of a way I look at things. There's some things in hunting that aren't my cup of tea. I don't like to do them, but they are good. They don't do anything bad. They don't shoot any holes in the boat. And if it's something that gets people outside and that they enjoy doing, even if it's not my thing, I'm not going to yuck their yum.
Yeah. I mean, I like that. Hashtag yuck my yum. Hope that's not a hashtag yet. No, I like that. And I don't, I struggle with that all the time. As a person, I don't get in people's business.
Yeah,
I don't want to get in somebody's business and tell them how to better do the thing that they're doing. I'll be trust that they've thought it through and either will or won't find a better way to communicate, if that's the goal.
I mean, I think it starts with yourself, right? And I think maybe that's what they're trying to do with Modern Huntsman, right? And that's great. And if you're going to be the example of how you think the hunting narrative should be to the outside world, great. But you do that by being an example and not necessarily by pushing other people back up onto the porch or whatever. You kind of lead the way.
Yeah. Right. Like I said, I mean, this is in no way downing. You'll hear in the interview, I think the Modern Huntsman magazine is fantastic.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's very good.
It is fantastic and well done, well written, well photographed, well designed. It is well done.
Yeah, it's really great. And I have nothing wrong. I have no problem with that ambition, right?
Yeah.
To do better. So we're always trying to do better, and we should, as a community, try to do better.
Yeah, it's just like, how do you, the question, and this could be seen as kind of frivolous, but the question is, how do you express that feeling? Dude, I see some shit I don't like. I see some things I'm not real into. I think they're shooting holes in the boat. What is my role in fixing that? And so I think we all just take on different versions of that.
Yeah. The way I try to take it on is, as I said, kind of lead by example. I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to tell people this is why I do it and this is how I do it. I'm going to try to change the narrative that way. And if that's how they're doing it, I think that's the right approach.
Yeah, and my thing for sure is just starting the conversation.
Yeah.
If I don't like something, I'm going to run right over to it. I'm going to stand there and be like, who can I have a conversation with about this thing? And I'm going to ask some tough questions. I'll probably, my opinion will probably change over that time, but the best way that I can think of to both understand a perspective of somebody you don't agree with and think might be shooting holes in the boat, but also to, you know, to make sure that there aren't any holes in your boat is to go over there and be like, what are you doing with that gun? Why is it pointed toward the hole? I'm going to shoot it in the air. Just questioning, like, what's the motivation here? Why is it good? And then I think the next episode of the podcast or a future episode, we'll have a vegan philosopher on. That's going to be fun for everybody, hopefully. And he asked me about trophy hunting. And I just said, look, it's complicated. He's like, well, are you willing to say that all trophy hunting is bad? I'm like, boy, no.
No way.
It's complicated.
Right.
Like that, am I against all a-holes? Yeah.
Right.
Because he's just applying, all he was doing was applying the word trophy hunting to somebody that he didn't like.
Right.
So if you would say, Ben, are you against all campers that litter? Yep.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, sure. But that has
Right.
nothing to do with the overall like acceptance of camping or putting a tent up somewhere and sitting out and roasting a hot dog. So like, yeah, if somebody just wants to cut the head off a deer and take it home, am I against that? Yeah.
For
all
sure.
day long, I'm
You
against
bet.
that. But the other point I made to him was why it's even more complicated is because our system of game laws pretty much sets it up so that even if the guy is an asshole, he is still doing good for the resource.
Yeah. That's
He can't
true.
help it,
Right.
even if he's an a-hole.
Right.
Even if all he wants to do is shoot a deer, cut its head off, take it home, show it to his friends, and throw it in the garbage. He's paid into a system that are going to make sure more deer are around. So we also have that to fall back on because we can't just kick out everybody we think might be, that guy.
Absolutely. I mean, trophy hunting, we shouldn't even get into that because it's so complicated, right? What does that mean? Because I like to kill big deer, and I have some nice European mounts on the wall. That makes me a trophy hunter to this guy. Probably, but I also feed all my family on venison, and also feed a good friend of mine's a vegetarian who only eats the meat I kill. So I don't know if that's technically a vegetarian or not, but
Yeah.
Venison diplomacy, as Ranella says, but to make that call is pretty tough.
Yeah. Yeah, it's how do you do that? What's it mean? This goes well into an article that ran on the MeatEater.com. And this is way more insular, but it still has a lot to do with how do you call people out. It's written by one Stephen Ranella. It's called The Biggest Dick Moves a Hunter Can Make. You should go read that over at themeater.com if you have a quick 5 minutes. It's a quick one. But he's got some examples here. Spot stealing. I mean, that's pretty obvious.
Sure.
Don't
do it.
Spot exposing, which I do on this podcast all the time. So I take a little bit of... We have a segment called Hot Spot Cool Dude or Gal, depending on who's on the podcast, where I ask people to expose their spots. And it's selfish. I like it.
Is that a dick move, or are you bringing more people into the sport and giving them more opportunity?
Dude, that was deep. That's exactly what we're talking about. It's just how you look at it.
That's how you look at it.
I'm trying to be democratic.
Right.
Some people are mad at me because I'm giving their spots away.
Right.
Don't be selfish.
Yeah. Am I going to be selfish and keep this spot to myself? Or if I know someone who's trying to get into hunting or needs to get out and has nowhere to go, and I tell them where to go,
Yeah, this is the point of the podcast where I would like to bring Phil in. Phil, what do you think?
I'm not much of a hunting, philosopher.
We know that,
like the
Phil.
people
We know.
Okay, great. I've already set a
But say
precedent for
something.
myself.
Your job is to say something profound.
Okay, great. You hired the right guy.
Anybody can be a hunting philosopher.
Yeah. Listen, look at me.
I mean, you just said what Anthony said was profound. Does it bring more people in and give them more opportunities? From where I stand, which is very far away from this, I'd say that that's a good point of view. Right?
Okay, good. Thanks, Phil.
Thanks.
I'll check back in with you a little bit later. Cool. Appreciate that. We're going to continue. Phil's getting abused. I love you, Phil.
Thanks, man.
Not cleaning game is one of Steve's dick moves.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Right.
I'm going to change the title of this to Steve's obvious dick moves that no one should ever even do. Sleeping in, another one.
Oh, yeah.
That's like...
Sleeping in?
Yeah.
Yes. No.
I think is he arguing for sleeping in?
No.
No.
Except I will say, I know Steve's talked about this. I've heard it. I don't sleep in when I turkey hunt because I feel like I want to be there at, before dawn, obviously, when you first hear the birds off the roost. But There was some times a couple years ago where I could not hunt first thing in the morning, so some things I had going on, and I killed more turkeys when I started going at 9 a.m.
This is the truth. The truth about that is most turkeys are not getting killed off the roost. Like I've killed a few, but I've killed the bulk of them at 9 o'clock after they've gotten off the roost, got settled where they want to be, and then I can make a play or whatever. But yeah, hunting them off the roost is a gamble, but it is cool to see a bird in the tree. Cool. And just like, I'll just get up under it. I know he's going to fly over there and I'm not going to kill him, but it's cool to hear him in the tree gobbling. And, you know, you can't sleep in. As a hunter.
No. That's the only thing I can really get up for, to be honest with you. I have a hard.
Yeah.
I'm more to like.
No, if you're like, hey, 4 a.m., there's a soccer game on in London. I'm like, nope, I'm not going to.
I'm a hit the snooze button kind of guy, except when it comes to hunting and fishing.
Yes. I don't know. There's a couple other ones here. I know I got one, which is just saying, like, I got this bird when. You know, you probably don't have it.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you got to throw a guy a bone when he's having a bad day.
Yeah, you got it. You got him.
He's missed a bunch of birds.
Especially in duck hunting when when 2 or 3 birds fall and he's like, I think I got one of those. Like, yeah, bro. Yeah,
man.
Good job.
It's a little pat on the back for guy who's struggling a little bit.
You did it. Good for you. See, that's a non-dick move by us. Brand new boots. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then complaining with no action, which we've kind of covered here a little bit. But those are all dick moves. Do you have any other dick moves?
Yeah. I think it's kind of a dick move when you just brag, right? When you're bragging about what you did. Look, man, you have a great hunt, whether that means you killed a big deer or really got back in there and got it done. That's good for you, and you should be happy about it. But I don't know how to put it in words, but you know it when you see it. When the guy's just
are you talking about like one-upping?
Yes,
if I'm like, when I was sheep hunting in the Northwest Territories, I remember when I was in Nepal.
Right.
It was hard.
Yeah, see, you brought it up. You did it.
Yeah, I do that all the time. I can't help it. I'm so great.
You are a dick.
Yeah. I think I am. I think after recording myself for a year and a half, I just realized that I'm a dick. But yeah, I mean, you're talking to a guy, no matter what you say, like, my dad and I, we love to go pheasant hunting. Yep, I pheasant hunt. Yep, I kill my limit every time I go.
Hey, no, listen, this is my biggest dick move that bugs me, is when somebody, whether it's a kid or a grown man or woman, kills a buck, and someone says to that person, boy, he would have been something else in another 2 years. Get lost, man. Buddy. Listen, I respect the idea of, hunting mature animals and proper wildlife management. But that's an evolution that I think a lot of hunters have to go through on their own. And even if you never go through it, that's all right. My father, he gets out not as much as he used to. And, I mean, he's going to kill a small buck, and somebody's going to be like, oh, boy, Dad, that one would have been great next year. No, man, he's out there. He had a great time. Like, when you say that to people, I just think you're taking a moment that was meaningful to them, and you're kind of, crapping on it.
Being a dick. That's what you're doing. Yeah, that's a good one. Let's see if I can think of one. That's a really good one, though. That may be the biggest... And then there's another one where like a guy might be watching a TV show and a child might kill a giant animal. And the first thing is like, psh, whatever. Only because they're rich.
Yeah,
because their dad has money. They don't deserve that. Like, what do you mean?
Right.
You weren't there.
Yeah, right.
That person, if my dad was rich and he took me running around the world to kill stuff, I would have loved it. Yeah. Bring the criticism on all day.
That's just jealousy, pure and simple.
It's like just pure gel. I can't. Whoa, that little kid didn't earn that kudu.
Yeah.
Well, what little kid earns a kudu? No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
right.
But they're lucky to have a dad that would take him to do that. If you think,
dude, if I could do that with my kid, I mean, I took my kid to Alaska 2 years ago fishing.
That's awesome.
I mean,
how
dare I? Like,
and you just gave your spot away, by the way. Unbelievable.
Don't go to Alaska.
Don't. There's bugs. Phil, you have any dick moves? And just you could go, since you're not a hunter, just in general, like things people do around the office, maybe office. That's a good office dick move. So let's get that going.
Well, someone just left a bunch of Pickle Barrel sandwiches in the fridge. Pickle Barrel is a local sandwich shop.
Shout out.
Very
tasty.
Yeah, there you go. Very tasty, notoriously smelly, the onions are heavy, and they just left them in the fridge uncovered, and then the fridge smelled like onions. like onions. Very, very, But that was a light one.
Phil,
light dick move. Yeah,
I have to fess up. One of those sandwiches was mine. They're big sandwiches. They're big. I could only eat half. Big. They are smelly.
Did you put them in there? Did you put them in uncovered?
No, I did something even worse. I left my half-eaten sandwich on the conference table and left, and someone else put it in the fridge. So yeah, that's a pretty dick move.
Yeah.
Well,
I had another meeting. I'm sorry.
Listen, I said it was a light dick move.
Yeah, that was me. Okay, I'll take ownership for that.
Let's keep going. Let's see if we can find any other things Anthony's done. I will say I did one yesterday. We were filming a thing, and they have the lights on you, and they want you to look good. And then we ate lunch, and then we continued filming. And they gave us floss to make sure we didn't have anything in our teeth for the filming. And I did the floss, and then I set it down on the table, and I walked away.
Oh. Did you clip your toenails too? That's nasty.
Yeah. So, and then Ranella goes, "Did you just leave your floss on the table?" I was like, "Nope." And I put it in my pocket and I walked away. I was like, "Nope, wasn't me." I just slowly shuffled away in shame. Any other office? You both are relatively new to the office.
Relatively new. Well, this guy keeps having me on his podcast and tries to get me to sound smart, and it's impossible.
You're going to be a hunting philosopher by the time your time is here.
Okay.
We'll get you there.
Sounds good.
I was thinking that was an obvious one. This guy keeps putting me on his podcast and puts me in tough spots.
Yeah. It's really rough.
Yeah. What other office? I like this topic. Other office. We're going to probably cut out Tyler's. Sorry, Tyler. We're going to put you in we're going to do another hour and a half just on office. What's the other, other office dick moves? People's dogs sometimes are just not. We have a dog-friendly office.
Yeah.
And there's some people who know who you are. If you're thinking, is he talking about me? I'm probably talking about you. Your dog is annoying.
Are you talking about the meeting we had earlier, Che, where someone was right in the middle of a really important point and the dog comes under the table biting her wrist repeatedly? And she was trying to carry on with her point and pretend it wasn't happening?
I don't want to tell you guys, but during the whole meeting, that same dog was licking my toes. And I was like, what do I was like, no, I'm not hating it. I'm into it a little bit. So yeah, there's that. That's one. The dog thing. The food thing is tough because we cook a lot of weird stuff. We cooked crow. We cooked mountain lion. We're cooking bear today. And so it's a tough one. The smell.
Yeah.
Because our desks, Anthony, are like right in the danger zone if a guy was to burn the meat,
Well, I used to work in New York City, and one of my favorite cheap lunches was street meat. Call it street meat, right? Big plate of like Middle Eastern food with rice and onions. It was delicious. But man, everybody else would be like, "Hey, got some street meat today, did ya?"
It's coming out of your pores. It's coming out of your pores. Yeah. All right, Phil, give us one more office dick move.
Well, I was just thinking about the street meat because I can relate to that. I've only been to New York twice, but one time one of my friends like we're going to Halal Guys at 2 a.m. or whatever time it was. He ordered for me because I had no idea, and I couldn't get it out of my skin for about a week.
Yeah, it's rough the next morning.
It was really rough. Oh yeah,
when you're eating it at 2 a.m., it's rough. It's rough.
It's like sad. You're like, oh yeah.
I'm not sure this is an office dick move, but you brought it up by talking about the dog licking your feet. This is a flip-flop friendly office, man.
Everybody has flip-flops on.
And like slipping them off and some bare feet.
Yeah, I did.
I'm just saying.
I did put we have a mega desk, you and I did take my flip-flops off and put my feet on my desk. Was that today? Maybe yesterday.
No, I didn't see that. Thank God.
Oh, you weren't there. No. I did it strategically when you weren't there. But I mean, I was actually chided by my coworkers for not wearing flip-flops soon enough.
Well, dude, I came 2 days ago, and I'm wearing my Bluntstone boots that I wear all the time. I saw more than one person look at my feet in judgment, being like, dude's not wearing flip-flops. It's like 60 degrees out. He should have flip-flops on.
The people in Montana are so excited when the sun comes out. They're just like shirtless. I was like, it's 48 degrees. Calm down. Why aren't you wearing shorts, bro? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's not what we do. So, yeah, there's a lot of judgments. We've gone off the rails.
Yeah, we have.
Which I really like.
But I'm trying to change the narrative of the MeatEater office. That's really what I'm trying to change
here. Redefine. So you're trying to redefine the MeatEater office narrative. What's the current narrative?
Flip-flops and dogs.
Bunch of flip-flops and dogs. Which there's only a few. I want to say there's only a few ways that I could tell the story about the dog licking my toes in the office. Because there's a lot of people here. Maybe you're listening to this in your office. Have you ever had a dog lick your toes during a meeting?
No.
When you're giving like some real important monologue about content, and then there's like a dog just down there, just going to town. And then I'm thinking, it's distracting me because I'm thinking, why is he licking my toes? What is on my toes? I took a shower. What's on my toes that shouldn't be there?
See, yeah, man, wear shoes.
Yeah. So I'm gonna leave you guys with that thought. What was on my toes?
Write in and let us know.
Write in and let us know what you think. Top 5 things that you think might have been on my toes. We're really going way off track. All right, well, we're going to get to the interview portion of the show.
All right.
That is one of the best segments we've ever done. We're going to get to Tyler Sharp, and we're going to go. He lives down in Livingston, Montana. I went over to his house. We had a really good conversation about what he does, what he wants to do, and his goals within the industry, and then some of his pretty cool stories from his time traveling with the likes of Jim Shockey and others, filming and experiencing a lot of things, and a couple of a lion attack story.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so that's cool.
Very
We got
cool.
that going. So we're going to transport ourselves in time to Livingston, Montana. We're going to talk to Tyler Sharp, the editor-in-chief of Modern Huntsman. Enjoy.
I guess I grew up on an older road.
Tyler Sharp, what's up, man?
Not much, just enjoying a Topo Chico over here in the Shields Valley.
Hey, maybe they would sponsor the podcast, you think?
I would hope so, because it needs a larger presence in Montana,
Yeah.
I think.
Topo Chico. Now, I just came from Texas. I lived there for some time and did enjoy it. And you are a dual resident of Texas and Montana, which I feel that's a pretty good combination
It is.
to have those two things.
Trying to maintain that, trying to be a fair weather resident in both places.
So lay that out. Do you go down there during the wintertime and come up here during the summertime? Because if you do, screw you, because that's awesome.
I was here this winter,
which
was, pretty cold, especially out here. But the idea, would be summer here, fall here, and then maybe December through February or March in Texas, come back for spring here. Finding that balance, but
that's a fine balance.
Yeah.
I often tell people that if I could take the best of those two worlds, I would take it every day.
Yeah.
And this winter in Montana wasn't so bad. Probably out here, you're out here in the middle of nowhere on a beautiful ranch. I'm sure it was a little tougher out here than it was.
It wasn't bad until February, and then there was a period of 3 weeks where it was 15 below, and we got 3 feet of snow. And so that started to grind on me a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I went snowboarding and tried to snowshoe and hike. But when you go outside and your breath immediately freezes, you're like, yeah, I'm not going to go for a run today.
And you're, where were you born? Tell people where you're born and how you got to where you are today. Long story, I'm sure, but.
So, little known secret, and I hesitate to even tell the public at large this. I was actually born in Kansas City, Missouri. When I was 2, we moved to Austin. So grew up in Austin, and then we moved to Grapevine, which is in between Dallas and Fort Worth. Went to school there, and then I went to college at USC in Los Angeles, studied film and photography, as well as psychology and Italian randomly. And then my first job was in Tanzania. So I moved to Africa and worked for a safari company and filmed and photographed hunts for 6 months. And that's kind of what put me on the trajectory of the hunting industry. So,
yeah, explain that time in your life. I mean, you talk about a lot of varied places: Missouri, Austin, USC, and then over to Africa. O'Reilly Auto Parts are in the business of keeping your car on the road. O'Reilly Auto Parts offer friendly, helpful service and the parts knowledge you need for all your maintenance and repairs. If you're confused about what part you need, like what wipers are going to be the best, what replacement headlights are going to be the best, go into O'Reilly and talk to the people that work there, because they're great and they're super friendly, and they'll get you squared away where you walk out knowing you got the right thing. They've got thousands of parts and accessories in stock, either in-store or online, so you never have to worry if you're in a jam. Do you need your windshield wipers replaced? You need a brake light fixed? You need some quick service? They'll help you find the right part or point you to the nearest local repair shop for help. The professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts are your one-stop shop
for all things auto do-it-yourself, and you can find what you need in-store or online. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts today or visit us at O'ReillyAuto.com/MeatEater. That's O'ReillyAuto.com/MeatEater. You ever get that feeling you're stuck inside staring at screens and a primal urge kicks in? You crave wide open spaces, fresh air, the chance to connect with the land. Well, maybe it's time to find your own piece of the wild, but searching for property can be a maze. That's where Land.com comes in. They got millions of listings across the country, from mountain ranches to hidden fishing holes. Their search tools are like a seasoned guide helping you narrow down what you want. Land.com isn't just about buying and selling. It's about finding a place to hunt, fish, explore, or simply sit by a campfire and listen to the crickets. So head over to Land.com today to turn one day into today, because trust me, there's nothing quite like the feeling of standing on your own piece of earth. There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store, or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today.
I want to talk a little bit more about Africa in this conversation,
Sure.
but describe that time where you first got to see that place and understand what it was.
It was, everybody has their own vision. They've heard stories, they've read books, they've watched movies, and then you get there and it's kind of your own experience. And I remember getting there and it was way out in the bush. So we took a bush plane 2 hours out in the middle of nowhere, and I get there, it's dark. And I meet some people in the camp, and they kind of take me on this tour, and they show me the nice tents, and I'm like, oh, cool. I kind of put my bag in, and they're like, oh, no, that's not your tent. That's the client tent. And they take me to the back of the camp, which is in the pitch black. I don't even know what the area looks like. And this is in Tanzania. It's called the Ruaha, or it was the Usangu Game Reserve, which is adjacent to the Ruaha National Park, and amazing area. And so I get out in this tent, and they're like, okay, good night. And I can hear hyenas immediately.
It's always nice.
And then I hear lions. And I'm like, all right, well, maybe I'll just brush my teeth and go to bed. I literally step outside and I hear a lion roar. I'm like, you know what? I'm good. I don't need to brush my teeth. And so that first night was a little unnerving because I have never been there. I have no idea if a tent is safe. How close are those lions and hyenas? But then I woke up and kind of saw the lay of the land. And I always say I feel like I went there a boy and came back a man, because I literally, this was before iPhones. There was no cell phones. There was no internet. There was a CB radio and a satellite phone. That was it. And, we hunted for our own food. They had a shamba in Swahili, which means farm. So they grew all their vegetables, and we were eating everything that we grew and killed. And, I learned Swahili, became like a family with all these people, learned how to track, could tell within 10 minutes what time of day it was by looking at the sun, and just experienced this lifestyle that didn't even know was real, right? And then it changed me completely.
Yeah, how could that not change you?
Yeah, and you want to talk about close encounters. I got charged by leopards. I had a lion come into my tent in the middle of the night and stare me down 5 yards away in a full moon.
Don't pass that over. Tell both.
So the lion story, this is something I actually wrote about in volume 1 of Modern Huntsman. Yeah. And so it's an area called the Kilimanjaro. It's a floodplain in central Tanzania. And we were there hunting buffalo by river. You're in a boat with a triple-decker, observation tower, and a Maasai sits on the top. And if he sees buffalo, he pulls the string and it rings the bell, and the driver runs the boat. So you can't see anything. It's 14-foot grass. But lions are very present in this area, and they're hunting these buffalo or whatever. And the tent, the zipper was broken on the mesh. And it's so hot there that you can't sleep with the canvas closed. So we were sleeping with the tent wide open. Of course, my bed is by the door. And Georgie Ferreira, who's this, half Greek, half Brazilian Swahili speaking professional hunter. He's like man of the world, and he was like, "Oh, don't be a wuss. It's fine."
Like, bro, that's a lion.
Well, but so he's got the 470 double under his bed. He's asleep, right? So
feeling real good about that.
And this is the last time I ever took malaria medication. So there's two different ones. There's Malarone, which is it's a daily pill, and then there's Lariam, which is the weekly pill. So I had this weekly pill, which gives you murderous nightmares sometimes. So I woke up in this panic, like, and my heart was racing. I was sweating. I was panicking, and realized it was just this, malaria medicine. And then about 30 seconds later, I hear, which is a male lion right behind the tent. So I think, all right, do I have time to jump up, run out, untie the flaps, close the doors, zip it, jump back in? By the time I even flinched to do that, he called right next to my head outside the window. Just so I'm like, all right, well, here we go. And sat there, and he walked out about to where that chair is, so less than 5 yards away. Wow. And 600-pound male, massive, had this big mohawk mane, and it's a full moon, so it's super bright. And I reached down to grab the bed frame, because if he came, I was going to try to flip the bed on top of myself. Classic, the bed creaks. It's like, and the lion just turns around and just stares me right in the eyes. And I'll never forget, it was I just got goosebumps thinking about it. It was deathly quiet, and I could hear the sand as he dug his paws in and started to crouch, and his tail started to do this.
Oh, boy.
And so I'm like, all right, well, goodbye, world. And it felt like 10 minutes, but it was probably only about 15 seconds. And then he turned around, walked over to the river, rubbed his face on the fence, jumped in the river, swam off. And I was like, Georgie, wake up. That damn lion was here. And he gets up in his underwear. He's acting all tough. And the tracks were huge. And so he left. We didn't see him. Next full moon, next exact month, same tent, same camp, same lion comes back. But this time the door is closed. And he literally lays on the porch and sags the tent wall in. And he's like, like breathing. I can see the canvas moving back and forth because he's breathing. And so at that point, I kind of decided that lion was my spirit animal.
Yeah, man.
Because he just kept coming back. And I forgot to mention this detail. Before he showed up the first time, as a joke, we shaved a mohawk into my head because my hair, it was just too damn hot. I was like, let's shave my head. And Georgie's like, let's do a mohawk first. Next day, the mohawk lion shows up on the porch. So yeah, that was a close call.
The story of the mohawk lion.
Yeah, and
that's in Modern Huntsman Volume 1.
That was in Volume 1. There's plenty of lion encounters, plenty of elephant encounters. The leopard one was pretty funny. We were in Zambia, and we were hunting kudu and sable, and it's noon. We're driving in this Land Cruiser, no windshield, no roof, no doors, totally open air. And all of a sudden, Lance, the PH, slams on the brakes, and he's like, leopard, or Chewy, and we all see it, and it's trying to dig a warthog out of its hole. It's pretty rare to see a leopard in the middle of the day like that. And so we're like, oh, cool. And we're like 30 yards away. So Lance is like, all right, I'm going to try to get closer and so you can get a good picture. So he turns sideways, and the leopard kind of sneaks away behind this log, and it was just watching us from behind the log with his paws up. And I got some video footage of it, but it was kind of boring. It was too far away for it to be good footage. And so I was like, all right, I'll take a couple pictures, then we can go. So I take 2 pictures, and as I click the shutter on the third one, he just comes right for me. And that thing covered 20 yards in 2 seconds. And he got about this far away and veered off, so it was a mock charge. And I had a big, 70 to 200 lens. I was just going to try to hit him in the head with it. They're going to get you. It's just a matter of how bad. Yeah. So I put my arm around my neck so they can't get your neck, and I was just going to try to bash him with the lens. But it was a mock charge, so he ran off. And I looked down at Lance, and he's sitting there. He didn't reach for the keys, didn't reach for the gun, laughing. And he just turns to me and he goes, "Did you shit your pants, mate?" It's like, fuck you.
He's like, I'm sitting near you, dude. You tell me.
Yeah. So there's, I think I lived there. I lived in Tanzania for almost 3 years.
Yeah, and what really got you there? I mean, you know, we kind of gave people the lily pond, like
sure.
But how did you get to find yourself there?
Yeah, so really, I don't know how to describe it other than just destiny, and that might sound contrived, but I was at USC, and it was probably 3 months before I was about to graduate, and my dad at the time owned a store in Dallas that did screen printing and embroidery and all that, and it was next door to a home video edit. It was called You Edit Video. And we were friends with the manager because I used to run my dad's store. And the owner of the safari company came in there and had a bunch of really crappy footage. And he's like, oh, I want to make DVDs for my clients. And they were like, well, this footage sucks. You should hire somebody who knows what they're doing and get like HD cameras. And the guy goes, okay, well, let's do that. And my dad happened to be privy to this conversation and just said, hey, well, my son's about to graduate from USC. You should hire him. And they said, okay. So I literally got a call from my dad, and he's like, "Hey T, I sent you that mail, and you know we looked at flights, and I think I got you a job in Tanzania when you graduate." And so literally that's how it happened. So I literally, when I graduated, I sold a bunch of my stuff, said bye to my friends in LA, and moved back to Texas. You know, did the whole like Cabela's REI run, got all my safari gear, most of which is totally unnecessary. And went, and then had this amazing experience. But when I was there, I learned about Dallas Safari Club. And so when I came back, and side note, the company I worked for at the time, which I will not name, totally screwed me over. Didn't pay me. My visa expired. They never got my work permit. The owner fled the country. So I'm in the bush in November, right? And I'm like, how am I? I don't even have a plane ticket home. I have like $100 to my name. And I'm like, how? In the US, it's kind of a big deal if your visa expires. And I was like, oh, how am I, you know, I asked one of the guys at the office, like, what am I supposed to do? He's like, oh, I'm not Shida Bona. You just put the money in the passport. I'm like, you want me to grease the customs officer?
Oh, yeah.
He's like, oh, yeah, I'm not Shida Bona. Kabisa. And so literally to leave the country, I put a $100 bill over my expired visa, hand it to the guy, opens it up, takes the money out, stamps my passport, hands it back. And I went like straight to the bar, got a double whiskey and made it back. And that's when I learned about Dallas Safari Club. So I went, so this would have been January of 2007 was the first time I went to the show, and threw together a photo book, threw together a little DVD, and just started going around to all the outfitters being like, please take me back to Africa. I don't want to live in real world anymore. And ended up meeting a guy named Michel Montiakis, who's a third generation Tanzanian. He introduced me to the Knowlton family, which Corey Knowlton. Mm-hmm. And so I worked for the Knowlton family for almost 3 years. And I would follow their employees and clients around. Corey was a booking agent. Larry would send a lot of his oil company employees.
Yeah,
on
and
hunts.
For those who don't know, Corey was a long time on the professionals at Jim Shockey, and they have the hunting consortium.
Yep.
So that's Corey.
So I've traveled around. I went to almost 30 countries in 3 years, all over the world. I mean, Pakistan, Russia, Nepal, 14 countries in Africa, and so I was actually the original producer on the professionals. So like Corey and I kind of came up with that concept together, and because the Outdoor Channel was telling Jim they wanted him to do a second show. So we kind of came up with this idea, and I was like, this was right when DSLRs first came out. I was like, we need to get a Steadicam, we need to get a DSLR. And so I was one of the 4 original cameramen on the professionals. And so if you remember that show, there's the ibex jumping, there's the water buffalo falling, the bear running. That's all my footage.
Oh, really? I didn't know that, dude.
Yeah.
Well done.
And it's funny because I saw it, Yeti did a montage, and I saw the ibex jumping. I was like, that's my clip. So I did that for a little while and just got burned out. I was traveling. I was gone probably 9, 10, 11 months out of the year. Couldn't have a relationship, never saw my family. And being a hunting cameraman's hard. It's rough, and it doesn't pay well. I mean, I would never trade that because of the experience I got and the places I went and the relationships I formed with outfitters all over the world. But then I came back to Dallas, and this was probably 2012, and just kind of started to pursue more freelance stuff. You know, I'm an avid writer, and so I started trying to get more editorial work and brand work. So I kind of started to pursue brands like Filson and Stetson and Cabela's, and ended up getting hired by Cabela's and worked with Dushan. And that was kind of the shift for me, because then I almost quit photography because I was like, as you know, being an editorial freelancer is impossible full time.
Yeah, you can't make ends meet.
I was shooting weddings, I was doing senior portraits, I was doing corporate headshots, whatever. Right?
Should have you follow up your lion story with like a senior portrait story.
Oh my God, no! Please don't make me. So I almost quit, and I was like, I'm at the end of my rope, and I just thought to myself, okay, if I didn't have to worry about money and I could just do the kind of photography I want to do, what would it be? And that's, kind of what we're doing now, right?
Yeah.
Sporting life documentary, conservation storytelling, outdoor adventure. My mom's from Nocona, Texas, which is a pretty famous like Western history cowboy tent. Nocona boots and Justin boots are all from there. So I've done a lot of stuff with Texas Texas Historical Commission. And so I just kind of said, all right, you know what? From now on, I'm not going to take anything that's not this stuff. And I managed to land a gig with Garden and Gun and started doing some work with them and worked with Cubby Rise for a while. And then just through this entire process, right, especially because Texas is a pretty hunting-friendly state.
That's right.
Right? But when I would come back from Africa, people would have these emotional reactions because they just, for whatever reason, they've got an emotional attachment to these animals or they've heard something online. And so I kind of had these two realizations. One, that the hunting industry does an absolute terrible job of communicating with non-hunters about why it matters, about its role in conservation. And then the second part of that realization was that most non-hunters are either not educated or directly misinformed about hunting's role in conservation. And so that combined with my experience with other magazines and how I felt like things could be done better, highlighting the contributors a lot more, promoting things online, is kind of what led to starting Modern Huntsman.
Yeah. I think, and when you expressly say things like that, and I've said these things before, here's the problems I see with hunting, right? And the messaging. I don't have any problem with the act of hunting, but the messaging being a problem. I think there's some people that are immediately turned off by, whoa,
sure.
Well, don't tell me what's wrong with what I got going on.
Yeah.
So there's a fine line to walk there. I think we try to walk it because we love it so much. You want it to be beneficial for society. You want people that don't do it to understand it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's pressure there.
Yeah.
To do that. So with Modern Huntsman, like, how have you tried to walk that line? Because it's a thin one.
It's difficult. I think we can all agree that hunting is in a hole, and it wasn't you and me that dug the hole.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a hard conversation to have, right? And I feel like we're in a really difficult position because I've intentionally positioned Modern Huntsman on the periphery of the hunting industry. Because if we are perceived as deep within the belly of that, we will not be able to accomplish our goal, which is to communicate with the 70 to 80% of people who don't hunt and improve their viewpoint of what we do, right? Which makes it hard because the hunting industry is so... I don't want to say, I don't know how to say this, but they stick to their own, right? And I think you could agree with the story I just told. Like I've earned my chops, right? I've seen and been and done the hunting industry, and so I understand it, and I know that there's a lot of really good people who are really dedicated to trying to keep it moving forward, to keep it alive, to grow our numbers. However, the tone that's being used and the methods they're trying to communicate aren't working.
Yeah.
And it's an us versus them. And I wrote about this in my editor's letter. Like, it can't be us versus them anymore. It's got to be all of us, both sides together against all of the conservation issues that we face.
Yeah. I think there's some difficulties in all of this. And one of the main difficulties is how you just articulated, like wanting to kind of position yourself away from the core, but then using terms like we and like we. What's we? What's that collective really? Because it's hard to define. If you feel like, well, these people don't represent me, I need to represent something different than them, or the way that they've done in the past, or at least like a sea change a bit in the messaging. It's hard to come to bring that all together, right? I mean, that's extremely difficult. Like pulling the core hunting community that's kind of stuck in their ways, or maybe caused this problem that you perceive towards your thing. That's hard. I think we've all found it to be hard, thinking that thinking, is that better? Falling apart.
Yeah, because I can't.
You can't. You can hear me, but you can't.
Hear it now.
We're recording.
Okay.
There's something going on with this piece of machinery. You can hear me?
Yeah. Let me see. Is this mine here? It goes back and forth. Hang on.
Yeah. I wonder what that is. I wonder if it's that connection. Just trying not to jack with it.
Yeah. I mean, I've used this metaphor before, and I haven't been blasted for it yet. So
get ready.
I'll just keep going with it. It's like you have a grandpa who's kind of handsy, right? And you're at the birthday party, and grandpa maybe like grabbed your girlfriend. You're like, Grandpa, you caused some problems, and we love you, and you're a good guy, but just you need to sit in this chair for the rest of the party, and there'll be a time when you can come back. But for right now, we got to fix this, right? And so, grandpa, right? That's not a specific person. That's not a specific organization. Let's call it the old mentality, right?
So let's articulate that. Like, what's the old? Well, articulate the old mentality as you see it, and then what modern Huntsman represents.
Sure. So I think that the old mentality in, let's say, the 90s, right? There wasn't social media, right? And there wasn't the global spread of information in a second, right? And so there was this kind of combative language that was going on, right? The us versus the antis kind of thing. Well, the antis it's not as descriptive anymore. It is now because they're smart, they've mobilized, they've created media conglomerates. So now it's not just that organization versus this organization. It's whatever they want to say goes to the entire world. And they are much better at social media and media. I mean, like Cecil the Lion, nobody in Africa knew who Cecil the Lion was. No, he was not a celebrity. But they were brilliant in their marketing, and they came up with a campaign, and they accomplished their goal, right? And as a result, lion importation and elephant importation in the United States has been banned, which has had drastic effects on the African conservation. Tanzania has lost over 50% of its hunting blocks because people can't afford to manage it anymore. So I think that I'm going to go back to the us versus them thing. It can't be a fight anymore. Okay, let me change that. It has to be a fight, but we got to fight differently, right? It's got to be a constructive conversation. It can't be rock throwing anymore because it's not working. In fact, I think it's getting worse if that's the path we continue down. And so it's a difficult conversation, right? Because these are people that I've worked with and respect, and it's hard in any relationship, right? To say, hey, listen, I feel like you screwed up. Right, and communicating that to someone in a way that's respectful, that doesn't get their defenses up, because that's the key, right? In anything, right? So, and I think that's the difference with modern Huntsman, where it's working. We're having conversations with non-hunters, with vegans, with vegetarians, with brands like Patagonia, because we're doing it in a different way. That I don't know if I want to say it's more respectful, but it's in a tone that isn't getting their defenses up, and is making it more possible for us to actually have a conversation and point out the material in an educational way rather than a defensive way. Because if it gets defensive, no one listens.
Yeah, and do you feel like, I think specifically when we talk about the messaging, there's no way to get around. It's annoying to me, and I'm sure annoying to you, to continue to talk about trophy hunting scandals because some person took a picture with some animal that somebody didn't like. It's getting to be real old, but it's still, when you hear about hunting in the media. In fact, CBS just ran a thing about trophy hunting and had, is it trophy hunting versus conservation,
right?
And that continually is the messaging. And people, like you said, people that live in Chicago, they might live in New York. This is the only thing they see.
Sure.
And so, how do you change that part? Is there a way to change that part? Because
we just got to change the word.
Yeah.
So in Namibia, Byron and I were just over in Namibia speaking on a journalism symposium in a room full of mostly non-hunters talking about African hunting, which was super interesting. However, Namibia has deliberately changed their term to conservation hunting. It's no longer trophy hunting. And just that right there, right? Because when people hear trophy, and we could spend all the time in the world trying to describe to someone, okay, well, trophy technically means memento, right? And so if you are trying to harvest the oldest, biggest bull you can, that's one of the best things you can actually do for the herd dynamics, right? But that's not what people think. They think you're just going for the big antlers. And some people are, right? And that's fine, right? But we have to be cognizant of the fact that we live in a world where stuff gets spread all over the world immediately, and then there are a lot of people who are going to take that and misappropriate it and use it to their own gains for whatever financial initiatives they have. And so, do I think that people should be able to post their trophy photos because they're proud of it? Yeah, I think they do. However, that's not the reality of the world we live in. And so I think that if you truly care about the future of hunting, right, you have to at least be aware of the consequences of doing something like that. Mm-hmm. And it can't be this, and this is part of the old mentality, like, oh, screw this, I'm going down with the ship. We don't want the ship to go down. We would like the ship to stay afloat, and that's what I'm devoted to. Mm-hmm. And we're going to get chastised for it and criticized for it because we're not saying the same things. And I would like to, I have to, we have ties and alliances within the hunting industry, but it's not the majority. I'm having to gain that, and it's not a short conversation, right? It's something that takes sitting down and me being able to explain the chess game that we're playing.
Yeah, and I think give people a few examples of, you don't have to name names,
sure,
but like times you've been challenged.
Sure. Well, I think that for instance, me personally, right? Someone goes to my Instagram account and there's not pictures of dead animals on there, right? And so I've been accused or criticized for not being a real hunter, right? Or being hardcore, whatever you want to call it. But that's a choice, right? Because if I put, there's a way to do that, right? Mm-hmm. But if I don't do it the right way, then it's going to unravel all the work we've done. So, as an individual, I see myself as a diplomat, right? I see myself as an ambassador for what I believe to be our, the virtues of hunting. Like, and I can't sit here and give you a list of like, okay, this is right, this is wrong, because as you know, it's incredibly nuanced and there's a lot of gray area. But in the same way that we could both agree that honesty and integrity and loyalty and bravery are all virtues, right? They represent a moral center. That's what we're trying to promote in this book, is the people and the places and the situations and the organizations that represent what we feel to be our, virtues of hunting, presenting that in a visual format that could win a design awards, and that allows access and engagement from people who aren't part of the hunting industry.
So would you say that, like, I'm looking at the volume 3 cover, it's a beautiful photo of a hunter. What's he tracking him?
It's a water buffalo. In Arnhem Lands in Australia.
It's a beautiful photo. Would you say this represents like your proposed new way of thinking? And then if you were to look at another magazine with a dude sitting behind a big giant buck, and that's like the older way. There's plenty of magazines that we can call to. We won't call them out. But it's like there's that and there's this. Well, how do you see those two things, right?
I don't want to call it a new way of thinking because it's not a new way of thinking, right? There's been people throughout history who have tried to do things what they feel to be as a better way.
I say your way of thinking.
Sure.
This version of
let's call it a different philosophy.
Yep.
Right? One that's focused on, I hate to use the word inclusiveness because that's kind of a buzzword, but we're talking to a different audience than
I will give you that because there's examples in volume 3. Mm-hmm. Max Lowe is in here.
Yeah.
A lot of people listening to this won't know who Max Lowe is. Max Lowe is in the outdoor recreation industry is like a rising star.
Yeah.
Climber. I would say his stepdad is Conrad
Anker.
Conrad Anker. So this is a person that isn't traditionally involved in what we do. Anything with hunting,
right?
He tells a story in here,
yeah,
about some of that. But there's also guys like Jason Matzinger in here who is core hunting,
right?
And guys like Charles Post, who isn't. Jesse Griffiths, probably not.
Right.
So there's just a lot of different perspectives here.
Yeah,
so I'll give you that. I think that's in the work is reflected.
And I think that the difference, right, with a magazine with a big buck on the cover with a guy sitting behind it, that's speaking to a specific audience, right? There's people who that's what they want to see. Like they know how to score that deer. They probably know where it was, and that's it's a specialized thing, right? And so we're not talking about a specialized thing. We're talking about engaging with a non-hunting public.
Yeah.
And I'm doing my best to maintain credibility in the hunting industry, that we do have a balance of people who are legitimate hunters. But at the same time, I think that, like we were talking about earlier, we're not, when I say we, the hunting industry, are not going to survive if we don't allow other people who aren't considered core hunters into the space.
Yeah.
Because that number is dwindling and things are changing. Populations are growing. Humans are screwing everything up, right?
It's true.
And so I think that, a lot of the crossover we've had has been with the outdoor industry. Guys like Chris Burkhardt.
Yeah.
Right? Guys like Ben Moon and Josh Murphy, who are award-winning filmmakers who do a lot of work with Patagonia. And every issue has been a progression. And we're now having conversations. Our next issue is a women's issue. And every story is going to be focused on women in hunting and conservation and culinary and arts and all that. And that is a really great access point for some of these outdoor brands who now see the rising interest in the female population or people. We had a quote from Yvonne in the second issue that was like, people aren't just hunters anymore. They're hikers and they're climbers and they're surfers and they're hunters.
Yvonne Chenard, Patagonia's Yvonne Chenard. Yeah, I mean, you're right. And I do feel, I will say, I want to let you talk about your thing here. I think it's interesting and important. But I do agree with you. I feel that as a community, we know we got to grow. Everybody would agree with that.
Yeah.
Right. How we do it, the way in which we message is something we can talk about all day. But I feel very strongly that if as a community, not everyone does this, but there are certain factions that do.
Right.
If we're going to push out people that think differently and look differently and act differently, if we're going to typify a hunter, and if you don't live up to that thing, if we're going to push you out or downgrade your status in the hunting industry, if we're going to do things like that to people, then we're not going to grow. We're never going to have the chance to expand the way we think, expand the way other folks think about us. We're never going to build a bridge, ever. And so, regardless of who's on either side of the bridge, if we can't bring someone in and say, "Okay, you're a brand new hunter. You may be legit in this field, but you're not legit. Come over. Let's teach you. Let's learn from you."
Exactly.
If you can't do that, nothing's ever gonna happen.
Well,
so I do agree with that part.
It's an opportunity. I think that a lot of people who are experienced hunters, and especially out in the West, I would say in a sense they're kind of xenophobic, right? They don't. Montana's full, go home, right? Mm-hmm. Which you don't want gentrification, you don't want massive development and all that. But if someone's there, right, with a California plate, and they're doing something they shouldn't be doing, that's an opportunity to engage with them and maybe teach them the right way, right? Rather than have a confrontational experience that's going to make them feel unwelcome or turned off from now growing their interest in hunting and fishing, And I think that that's a really important thing to do. And it's hard, right? Because, and I wrote about this in the editor's letter, that in a way, Modern Huntsman is meant to be a mirror that's forcing us in the hunting industry to think about the things we say and the things we do, and we're not going to like some of that, right? And so my hope is that we are not blamed as the mirror instrument of reflection by viewing something unpleasant about the way things are versus the way they should be.
Yeah.
And so I think that in the spirit of self-improvement, I would hope that over time that these things can move forward and that this can be easier. And let's think about, Dallas Safari Club and SCI, right, at these shows. Think about a non-hunter walking into those shows.
It's terrible.
They're like, what is this? And I would like to see and this is a conversation I'm having with Corey at Dallas Safari Club, is that even if it's a small section that is presented differently, that maybe it's a gallery of some of this work, or it's, some films, or it's some chefs, or it's something that's not just, the traditional convention center with a bunch of blown up dead animals all over it with, that's what it's about. Because that currency is big horns and big hunts. And that currency needs to shift a little bit, right? So that it's more about the experience. Because I think we could all agree, at least you and me, I don't know about everybody, and that's fine if you're just out for the score, but I don't hunt for that. Like, I hunt for the experience. Yeah. And that is the way that we get other people involved, because that's what they're looking for.
Yeah, and like I feel, I'll play devil's advocate for a minute, because it's always fun to go.
I wouldn't expect anything else.
Go there. That's me. I'm the devil's advocate. But I would say, one, in this conversation, I want to let you just say what Modern Huntsman is and get that out there. I was having a conversation. I'm going next week to Berkeley, California. Yep. I'm going to go to the Berkeley Animal Rights Center. And I'm going to have a conversation with some animal rights activists. And in talking to them, I said, specifically about trophy hunting, what is it that gets you about it? Mm-hmm. It's like, because you're talking about the motivation of the individual. You're not talking about the benefit. Because if you're looking at the benefit of trophy hunting for African game and in conservancies and when they were created, and the fact that there's more game than ever and it's more valuable than ever for the people that live there, it's kind of, you can't really argue that when you look at the facts. Yeah. You can't. It's hard to argue. But let's just say there's a small amount of people in this case, and those shows kind of typify or signify what that really is. A small amount of people with a lot of money who think a certain way, right? Those, you would never set up a stable conservation system in that way. A very small amount of people with a lot of funding that desire to go to a place that they may or may not care about. It's not required of them to care about the economic or social and economic issues in Africa or any one country, or the wildlife populations in the place where they go. It's required of them to pay the money and get on a plane and go do their thing. So we've not analyzed their motivations, which makes that relationship unstable, right? It's an unstable relationship. You're relying on that small room of people that walk around at DSC or SCI and fund what is a very important conservation initiative. So I think that, I just think from a pragmatic level, even from a devil's advocate level, that's unstable. So you have that point, and then you have what's motivating that small group of people to go over there and kill those animals. Because I don't think anti-hunters or non-hunters would have a problem if that motivation was removed. If those people were flying over there, they happened to kill a couple of animals and eat them, but they were giving that money to, a conservation organization, or to a small government, or to some individual or group of people that could better the mission. Yeah, and so for most folks, I think it falls apart with that motivation.
O'Reilly Auto Parts are in the business of keeping your car on the road. O'Reilly Auto Parts offer friendly, helpful service and the parts knowledge you need for all your maintenance and repairs. If you're confused about what part you need, like what wipers are going to be the best, what replacement headlights are going to be the best, go into O'Reilly and talk to the people that work there, because they're great and they're super friendly, and they'll get you squared away where you walk out knowing you got the right thing. They've got thousands of parts and accessories in stock, either in-store or online, so you never have to worry if you're in a jam. Do you need your windshield wipers replaced? You need a brake light fixed? You need some quick service? They'll help you find the right part or point you to the nearest local repair shop for help. The professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts are your one-stop shop for all things auto do-it-yourself, and you can find what you need in-store or online. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts today or visit us at O'ReillyAuto.com/MeatEater. That's O'ReillyAuto.com/MeatEater. You ever get that feeling you're stuck inside staring at screens and a primal urge kicks in? You crave wide open spaces, fresh air, the chance to connect with the land. Well, maybe it's time to find your own piece of the wild, but searching for property can be a maze. That's where Land.com comes in. They got millions of listings across the country, from mountain ranches to hidden fishing holes. Their search tools are like a seasoned guide helping you narrow down what you want. Land.com isn't just about buying and selling. It's about finding a place to hunt, fish, explore, or simply sit by a campfire and listen to the crickets. So head over to land.com today to turn one day into today, because trust me, there's nothing quite like the feeling of standing on your own piece of earth. There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store, or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today.
So it's hard to separate the motivation from the end result.
Yeah, and I think that that's something we're actually talking a lot about. To boil volume 3 down to the when I say it in like a one statement, it's there's a lot of amazing animals in the world, and for one circumstance or another, a lot of them have to die.
Yeah.
And thankfully, there are a lot of systems in place that make sure that that is done responsibly, sustainably, and financially sensibly. I don't know if you can use two leads in a row, but
no, you can.
Yeah. So in that sense, right, the conversation I've always had about Africa, right, because I filmed a gamut, right? Mm-hmm. Some guys saved their whole life to go on a buffalo hunt and like cried the first time they shot a buff with their 470 double rifle, which was amazing, right? And then I've got guys who like just couldn't care less. This is their 20th safari, right? And just like with any job, you keep your mouth shut, right? You bite your tongue and you say, you know what? This guy doesn't uphold what I feel to be are the virtues of hunting, and I feel like somebody should appreciate what they're being able to do right here, but they don't, right? Thankfully, the system is in place where the money they're paying is going to the people who do care and are helping that continue. But that's something that we're trying to do, is show that there's a difference, right? There are the people who don't give a shit. They just want to kill, right? But that's not most of us. And so I think that creating that distinction for the public, right? Because when someone looks online and they see sensationalized Facebook posts or some, main media slander, they lump hunters all into that category.
Well, and that's the narrative. Let's be honest.
No, it is.
The mainstream, however you would define mainstream, that's the narrative that's pushed.
Absolutely.
And it's often like push the narrative to the point now where there's enough people questioning, okay, well, what's the counter narrative?
Right.
That even when you watch the new CBS thing or any of the documentaries, you find people embracing the counter narrative enough at least to address it.
Exactly.
And set up the two different sides.
Yeah. So I think that that's really the point, is to show that, look, there's more than that, right?
Yeah.
And to do that requires a little bit of separation from that, right? And so, not to say that one's holier than thou, right? But it's one of those things where I found myself being held accountable for someone else's actions, and I don't really think that's, well, you can't say it's fair because that doesn't matter, but you know what I mean? I'm trying to do something about it.
Yeah.
Right? To show that there are other people in this world who do things differently. And yeah, those guys are assholes, right? Maybe the one guy is a dick. But you know what? He does pay a lot of money, and that money goes to the right places. So we can accept the bad behavior of grandpa, and he can still hang out, but we just need to know that, like, we have our differences. And I would hope over time that that the support of some of the, and I worked for a lot of guys who are Texas kind of oil barons, right? And they're some of the nicest, most humble people I've ever met in my entire life. But they're old school, right? And they're super conservative. And so, and I'm not a Democrat or a liberal by any means. I spent my entire life in Texas. But so I try to stay middle of the road. It's my job now to be an observer and understand both sides and try to find a solution, not a solution, but at least progress towards a solution. And so the conversations I'm having with guys, like Larry or some of my former clients is, listen, we're all going the same direction, right? We all have the same goal, but the road that we've been on before isn't working. And so we're trying to go on a different road. And more than anything, we just need your help, right? And we need you to understand that this is not some infiltration, greeny, whatever you want to call it. It's a psychology move. It's a chess move, and we need the backing. So, those are conversations I'm having with leadership of some of these organizations is we need MeatEater. We need, BHA. We need all of those, but we also need this too, because when you look at the spectrum, we've got to cover more than just the ground we're currently covering. Yeah. And so that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. I mean, when you have these conversations with folks in those positions, because I think I've probably made the mistake in the past of condemning those entire organizations. Because when I go, I think Wild Sheep does a pretty good job of. Yeah, they've done a pretty good job. Gray Thornton and crew have done what I would say is a great job of understanding what's going on and trying to. You go to their show and you really feel that they're making an effort to kind of see both sides of that coin, see how it was, see how it needs to be, and really put that all together in one thing. What's the conversation with folks at like Safari Club or Dallas Safari Club? Do they see it when you talk to them? Do they recognize it? Are they worried, or is it insular?
Seeing it more, right? Because I mean, it's a 272-page book. It's not something to be like, here, read this pamphlet real quick, right? And it's pretty in depth. I think that the hunting industry or a lot of these organizations, right, however good our intentions might be, in most cases, it's a room full of members of the same club all agreeing with each other. Mm-hmm. And when that conversation goes outside of the room to people that aren't part of that club, a lot of times it ceases to be productive because the communication is broke down, right? And so in the same way that you can think about a PR campaign or a communication strategy or a style guide, that's what we're trying to do, is create a new method of communication, of visual representation that is still is accomplishing the same goals, but again, is we're trying to go around it. So when they see that, they're not thinking about Cecil the Lion, even though we're going to talk about it. And we're going to hit him with the truth, So I think that's no matter what it is, right? Because so much of the messaging of these organizations is in interior, right? It's to other hunters, it's this or that, which is important, right? Because there's a lot of hunters who, could perhaps stand to learn more about, public land or do more than just pay the Pittman-Robertson tax, right? Or get involved, right? That's all stuff that's good. But like we all agree that those numbers are going down. So where's that going to come from? And I personally believe it's going to come from outside. And the only way to accomplish that is to communicate in a different way.
Yeah. Do you feel like, I'm sure I'm guilty of this at some level too. Do you feel like you talk so much about it and you think so much about it and you think of like you said, it's not a new way, but it's just like your way of articulating what hunting is or what it could be, or it's value proposition for society, which I think is what we're talking about anyway. Yeah. Like, is it valuable for society? Yes or no? Right. That's what everybody wants to know. Is hunting, we're in a different spot. We have human linkage, like all the way going back to when we were hominids to this activity. So there's no arguing that. But in the modern sense, the links in the chain are starting to get broken. Yeah. So is there a version of this where you're worried about pulling the wool over people's eyes? Like, hey, this is how it really is, right? Modern Huntsman is how it really is, but people the people that I don't agree with can remain under the cover of what I've created to do the things they want to do.
No, absolutely not. I do not in any way believe that this is, hardline. This is the way it should be. Right. I think that what we're trying to do is we're not trying to be the experts. I spent a lot of time in Africa, right? So I have a lot of experience that has given me knowledge, but I'm not an expert. And
I don't know. Your expertise is pretty bona fide.
Well, okay.
But we're not talking about
that.
But yes,
I'm not a researcher. Right. I don't live there, even though I have. And there are basically, if we were going to get put on the spot, I would get somebody else who knows more than me there. right? And so on all of these topics and all these issues, I'm trying to bring together a diverse array of perspectives that present what I feel to be constructive conversations, right? To show some diversity, to talk about it in a different way. And it's not that I think that like this is the way it should be. Charles always says the term best and could be better practices, right? Mm-hmm. These are people that we feel like are doing really good work, right? Doesn't mean that somebody else is bad, and we're not trying to point fingers or slap wrists, but showing good examples that we feel good about promoting, right? And it's one of those things that it's going to be ever changing, right? Yeah. Because the whole hunting as conservation thing right now, it is, right? Hunting pays for whatever, what's the percent? 90 to 95%. That's going to go down. And so what's the alternative, right? The alternative has got to be a cross collaboration with non-hunting organizations, right? Yeah. I mean, in Africa, the perfect example, I was just in Namibia, and there's there's these community-based conservancies, right? Where a village gets to decide, they participate in the census, they get to decide who gets to hunt, they vet the outfitter, they get community hunting privileges, they get the meat, they get the money, they decide how to use the money, right? They're managing their own wildlife resources. But these areas bump up against photographic safari areas, right? And in most cases, the photographic lodges were paid for by the community conservancy. So they're now having to have these difficult conversations because these photographic clients come in and they're like, oh, this is bullshit. I can't believe you would allow people to murder these animals. Like, well, first of all, murder means human. Second of all, this was paid for by that. And so those conversations are helping them, and that allows them to hire more scouts, right? More anti-poaching. Now the farmers are invested in protecting the wildlife rather than scaring them off with a pitchfork because they smashed their crops. And so that mixture, right, of non-hunting and hunting that's the only way. I feel like, I don't know what that mixture looks like. Yeah. But the conversations are starting now, and those are conversations we were having in Africa, and it's something that actually we're probably going to do a story on is plant someone in these lodges and interview photographic safari people as they come through. Like, hey, how do you feel about the fact that this place was funded by community-based hunting? They're not going to use that as an opportunity to educate them.
That's what I mean. Yeah, that's where I'm at too. And I wonder, there's a lot of things where this manifests itself. The point that I'm making about wanting to say, this is the way I think about hunting. You should love hunting the way I love it. And then people come walking into, the tent in which we've invited them to come into, right. And they look around, they're like, wait a minute, what's that over there? You're like, well, that's Grandpa. He's right over there. And so that manifests itself in a lot of things. We say harvest, not kill. We've watered down some of the things in an effort to better message. But we've also watered down the realities. So how do you balance that? Because I do that all the time. But so how do you specifically
I've used this example before too. So think about if you're talking to your wife, right? And maybe you're feeling in the mood. There's a difference in saying, I would like to make love or I would like to screw.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Okay. So think of it that way. The choice of words and the tone that those words inject. And that's kind of the whole basis of this is, do we need to apologize? No. Do we need to change our lifestyles? And in most cases, no. Do we need to change the way that we present ourselves and the way that we communicate with people who aren't in the hunting industry? Yeah, absolutely, in a major way. Or it's going to get worse. And so I think that that's kind of what it is. And it's and instead of saying, okay, we're backed up against the ropes, we're going to start swinging. Just get out of the ring for a second. Be like, you know what? Let's have a beer. Let's take a break.
Let's have a conversation. Let's have a conversation.
I'm not good at boxing anyways, which isn't true, by the way.
Yeah, you're telling me. Yeah. No, I think it's one. People who know me will know. It's a willingness to have the conversation.
Yeah,
like the strength of conviction to know. Like, I love this thing. I want to have every single conversation I can possibly have to make it better. I want to show that in my actions. I want to show that in my creative work, which is what Modern Huntsman is, but like continue to believe that this is good.
Yeah.
Believe that it needs better PR.
Yeah.
And believe that me, you, whomever can be a part of that change.
Sure.
is that change is there gonna be some spasmodic pushback from any change or any kind of like stated purpose like that? Of course there's going to be. But I think you've been tested, I've been tested, people will test you. Mm-hmm. Do you really believe this? Yeah. How much do you believe this? How much are you willing to stand by the thing that you said that's controversial or the thing that you said that not everyone agrees with? Yeah. It's tough. You talk about being close to brands. I'm close to brands. We have people that help fund what we do or part of what we do, and it's hard to challenge cultural norms in that over-branded environment.
Yeah, and I want to clarify. I don't mean that every single person needs to do this. Right? I think that that there are always going to be individuals who choose to be the mouthpiece or the vagabonds or whatever it is. That this isn't like, oh, everybody needs to become better. It's more about an awareness of the need for it, right? And I know that not everybody is going to agree with what I say or that is going to support Modern Huntsman. And it doesn't matter what I say or what I do. There's going to be some people who just hard line in the sand against it for whatever reason. And that's fine. I would just hope that they would have the ability to understand what we're trying to accomplish. And in the same way that the diplomats and conservationists and statesmen before us had a sense of classy competition, to just respect it and respectfully disagree, right? Instead of drag it through the mud or debase it for some reason that isn't true. And that's still going to happen, right? Yeah. But, situations like this, to be able to, for the first time ever, actually talk about this with you, about why. Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, I beat this drum a lot, but I feel like the reason that this is interesting to me and the reason hunting and sporting ethics are interesting to me and the reason that conservation, other than its tangible benefits, is interesting to me is because as a practice, it's always shifting and moving and growing. Ecology is that way. Yeah. Ecosystems are that way. The outside world is that way. Mm-hmm. Always moving, shifting, growing, changing. You always have to react to what's happening. You can't always manage wildlife in the way that you've always managed wildlife. And you can't always talk about hunting the way you've always talked about hunting, and you can't always practice ethical place your ethical boundaries in the same places. You have to move and shift them around based on your personal experiences in your situation. So that's why it's endlessly interesting to me. It may never come to a conclusion. It likely will never. Right. But that's what hunting is. Hunting is this tangible activity that is always moving and always changing within who we are, what we do, our humanity, for Christ's sakes. Yeah. That may be overstating it, but I mean, it is, that's how I feel about it. Yeah. Well, and it's funny because I had this realization, I think it was maybe 2008, 2009. I had just come back from Pakistan where I was with Shockey and we were filming the ibex hunt up there. And I stayed for an additional 3 weeks. I'm going to tell a side story and I'll come back to that. Please. With Corey's brother, Buck Knowlton, who, side note, got noodling legalized in the state of Texas. And we stayed in Pakistan for another 3 weeks. One of the most amazing places I've ever been. And we had a little guide who took us around and saw museums and went hunting. And we had grown beards out, and we were wearing the shalwar kameez just to try to blend in a little bit. And we were in Lahore, which is, I believe, the capital. And Buck and I were driving around. We were in like a Toyota Camry, and it was clean and it wasn't dented up. So it's a pretty nice car for there. And this guide is driving us, and we're going down this road, and there's like donkeys jumping on cars and just madness. And this cop car just comes screaming up next to us, runs us off the road, screaming, pointing to get out of the car, aims his gun at my head, shouting at me in Urdu. And we had no idea what was going on. And it turns out there had been a terrorist attack, and I fit the description of one of the terrorists. Remember that famous National Geographic picture of the Afghani girl? Yeah. She's Patan, which is a region in Pakistan that just so happened that these gunmen were from there. And so it was a green-eyed, dark-haired, light-skinned guy. So I almost got gunned down on the side of the road in Pakistan. And after that, we showed them our passports. They're like, oh, hey, they're all, 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 they're all friendly at this point. So, and then I went home, and when I would try to tell this story, or actually, I don't even think I ever told my mom that story. But when I try to tell any story or have a conversation, I think about my small town Texas mother. How do I tell a story in a way that she will take something away from it, right? That she can understand it. That can't be so in the weeds and jargon and big words and based on individual experience only, that it's got to be something that, and I say this every time. I need to look up whose quote this actually was, but it was one of the classics, right? Galileo or Aristotle.
Somebody real
smart.
And dead.
They said, what good is wisdom if the common man can't understand it? Right? And so I think that that's kind of the goal, is to present what are otherwise perceived to be pretty controversial or complex topics in a way that not only the common person can understand from a storytelling point, but also somebody who has zero access or very limited access to a background in hunting.
Yeah. Well, we have a segment on the show called Damn Near Died. I was going to ask you later on about it, but I feel like you've given
I've
got 3 of them.
There's been a lot. Actually, there was one that happened 2 days ago.
Okay, this one's going to be sponsored by Federal Premium. Thanks, Federal Premium. We could possibly apply it to the other 3, but this one we're going to
might be controversial if it's sponsored by Federal Premium, but we'll see. So
they'll like it.
I was in Yellowstone, and I was fishing with a buddy on Sunday, so a couple days ago, and he left. He went back to Bozeman, and I was taking my time coming up from the west entrance up towards Gardner and past the Norris Geyser basins, and I wanted to stop somewhere and just kind of get out and enjoy myself. So I stopped. I saw this like nondescript pull out with no trailhead, pulled out, and I could see some steam coming from down there. I was like, oh, it's kind of cool. I've never been down there. I'm going to go check it out. So I get my binos, get the bear spray, get some water, go down there, and it's this really cool, open, scalded white area with steam coming up everywhere. And I was like, I don't want to fall into a volcano. I'm going to stay close to the tree line. So I follow the tree line. I go down there for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, kind of explore, find this huge pool that's like spring fed. I go, okay, I should probably start going back. So I come back, and in the same way that you can sense when a lion is close, like all of a sudden I could feel that there was a bear like right there. And I froze and like grabbed the bear spray and heard him, right? And I kind of started to sneak towards the direction I thought was the opposite way, and then I see another pair of tracks right there, and I go a little bit further, and I see 2 more pairs of tracks. There was 4 bears, and I was like, "Oh, I just got goosebumps again." And I was, on high alert. I started kind of kicking rocks and trying to make a little bit of noise, and just I didn't run, but just started to briskly move towards my truck. And I get up the hill and I get back to my truck, and this park ranger comes driving up, slams on his brake. He's like, "Oh my God, is this your Tacoma?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Thank God you're alive." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "We just chased this super aggressive female and her 3 cubs off the road down to exactly where you were." And so probably within 30 seconds, this like pissed off female and her 3 cubs came running through there. And I missed the tracks by like this much. Yeah,
they would have just kept running with you in their mouth, probably.
And so and then he kind of made light of it, But
you're alive.
Yeah, pretty much. And
same as your buddy back there in Africa with the lion.
So yeah, that was an exciting end to the Yellowstone trip on Sunday.
Well, good. You got about like 4 damn near dieds in one podcast, and
there's more if you need them sometime.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'll have you call other guests and like seed danger shit that you've done to them. But yeah, I mean, I think all this conversation for me, it can get repetitive for me. So it's nice to have you come here and just kind of explain what your mission is, what the purpose of Modern Huntsman is, and your vision for it. Because I've been in journalism for 10, 11 years, something like that. I think every print writer, every creative that puts together media would take a look at Modern Huntsman and be like, this is good. Like it's good for a lot of reasons. It's quality paper. It's good photography. It's well thought out. It's diverse, and not only in its subject matter, but in its personalities and in the characters within it. So, that's what I think, and I've thought that since the beginning. And so, kudos for that. I think it stands out in that way above a lot of things that are done in its own way. So, and it's got its own personality. Like it's got its own function within the world. It's clear to me. So thanks for that. I think there's no bad effort. It's a net positive no matter how it shakes out.
Yeah. Well, and it's one of those things where we're going to stumble and you know how high the stakes are, right? Mm-hmm. So it's so difficult to move forward in, the way that you feel like is the right way. Because if you say the wrong thing, you do the wrong thing, in a lot of cases, you can't take it back, right? Or it could be the end. And so it is, the stakes feel very high. And I remember trying to explain it to my mom, and she was like, Tyler, she's like, it sounds like you're just diving head first into controversy.
Your mom's Texas accent.
I was like, pretty much, actually. Thank you for pointing that out.
What's wrong with you, Tyler?
Yeah,
come on.
Actually, side note, my first name's actually William. I go by William Tyler, and which was a pain in the ass growing up because you get called in elementary school and they're like, William Sharp, I'd have to say here, but I go by Tyler, and then all the kids make fun of you. Straight up, I asked her about 5 years ago, why did you name me William Tyler and decide to go by my middle name? And her straight answer, she goes, well, I named you William Tyler because I hope when you grow up we call you Billy T. So if Modern Huntsman crashes and burns and I fail,
and you see this,
I'm going to become an outlaw country singer named Billy T. So look out for that release.
I'll be looking for
Actually, please don't look out because that would be a bad sign.
That would be terrible.
Yeah.
We're going to look at some of the people that are in Volume 3. When's Volume 3 come out, by the way?
So it should be shipping hopefully next week.
Oh, by the time you hear this, it'll be out in the world.
Yeah.
So go pick it up. You got, this is to your credit. You have Dude Perfect. Tell people who Dude Perfect are. If they don't know
so
that.
they are 5 just friends from Texas who started making trick shot videos in their backyard. And I didn't know this, but the first YouTube video they ever posted, Good Morning America called them The Next Day. And since then, they fluctuate between number 1 and number 2 YouTube channel in the world.
Oh, they got a show on Nickelodeon?
They have a partnership with Bass Pro and all that. But I think they have about 40 million. I'm sure it's more by the time we've done the interview. But they're big hunters. And so they have struggled with being able to communicate about their hunting. They realize that Dude Perfect's that channel. People aren't going to that channel to learn about hunting, but on their personal social media. So it was a cool conversation to hear about, what their plans are and what ways they see being able to use their platform to help further this mission. And they're, very much aware of the importance of tone in their own content. So
yeah, and they do. They're all Texas boys, or at least some of them are, right?
Yeah. No, I think they all are.
Yeah. You have our buddy Jesse Griffiths in here.
Yeah. Yeah, Jesse's great. And it was cool to give him a platform to talk about his hog obsession. And he
talked about it on this podcast. I could listen to him talk about.
Yeah.
He has a forthcoming. It's like a cookbook.
It's a second. So it's a sequel to A Field.
Yeah.
And I think I don't know if it has the same name, but it's much more focused on hogs.
Yeah.
And that's all he told me.
That's how he explained it to me. So I'm doing a book about feral hogs.
Yeah, which is awesome.
You have Simon Roosevelt.
Yeah.
Talk about, I don't think a lot of people know who Simon is. Talk about your relationship with Simon.
He's kind of a dark horse. So Simon is the great-great-grandson of TR. And I met Simon at Dallas Safari Club probably 5 years ago. And I remember he's working on a book currently. I believe Andy Anderson's shooting the book. And it's about hunting's role in conservation in North America, broken into different regions. And I was having a conversation with him at Michelle Montiakis' booth, my friend from Tanzania. I had no idea who he was. I was like, oh, well, I'd love to contribute to the book if you're looking for additional photos. And he's like, yeah. He gave me his card and walked away. And I look at the card and it says from the office of Simon Roosevelt and Allison Rockefeller. And I was like, holy shit. And I look over and Michelle is like, you have some luck, my friend. So anyways, I ended up going on a couple hunts with him, photographing. And this was way before we launched Modern Huntsman. So from the beginning, he's been my main advisor. And in terms of understanding the landscape and the history, and Simon, is old enough that he's, been part of that, but he thinks much more progressively. And so when he saw what we were doing, he said, I really believe that this is something that could work. I would like to do whatever I can to help you. And so he's been very instrumental in helping me introduce me to people, but then also give me feedback, often, which is very harsh, about what we're doing. And so, he's been invaluable. And, he wrote a pretty strong piece in this one. He goes for the throat. I mean, he goes into the long range and the can hunting and all of that. I mean, he throws down.
It's called Defining Modern Hunting.
Yeah.
So would look forward to that when you get in there. That's awesome, man. Yeah, like I said, you have guys like Max Lowe in here. I think that's a huge deal. Chris Burkhardt in here. Explain who Chris is. People need to know that.
Chris is a pretty famous or prolific outdoor photographer. Does a lot of work for surf brands and REI and Patagonia, and I think he has 3 million something Instagram followers. And Charles is a good friend of his, and so he's one of those guys. I believe he's a vegetarian, and he definitely doesn't hunt, but he believes that preserving wild places and wild things are more important than whether you're holding a rod or a rock climbing rope. So he's agreed to be a contributor the last 2 issues and help us promote in a little bit of way, which is amazing. And so they had a story about their work in Iceland, and it's a really cool story about how Iceland was the #1 geothermal, they were using hydro dams from these glacial rivers for aluminum production, and then that massive, and I cannot pronounce the name of the volcano, the eruption in what was that, 2014 or whatever, massive volcanic eruption that disrupted 50% of the world's air traffic. And that at that point, they shifted that's when tourism started to become big and people wanted to come see these amazing places, and that success. So now that's the #1 resource in Iceland is tourism. So that country realized, you know what, maybe we shouldn't destroy our glacial rivers by doing aluminum production, that we should support it. And so they're about to put in place an ordinance that would make 40% of the island a national park.
Wow.
And so that's kind of what Chris is bringing attention to. And then, we've got Gunnar from Iceland, who's a traditional Icelandic Arctic fox hunter.
Yeah, this guy, I love this guy.
Oh my God. This is my favorite story by far.
Many reasons.
Yeah.
Because if you just posted a picture of this feller, I'll try to flip
He looks straight out of the show Vikings.
Yeah. But also I think there's hipsters that might also dress like this. So if you look at this, you're like, oh, look at this guy.
Yeah.
What a loser. But then you start to read about him, like, this is a man among men.
So he's I can't remember if it's 3rd or 4th generation Icelandic Arctic fox hunter. So his grandfather taught him how to hunt, and he's got this massive red beard, and he wears the knit sweaters and the seal fur boots. And this is real. This isn't like a fashion show. And he wrote this amazing story. It's definitely my favorite one in the issue, about the history of when the Vikings first landed in Iceland. They had to compete with the Arctic fox for the same food source. And so over time, and a lot of it has to do with the eider birds, right, which are endangered, and or that they were preying on the livestock, which in Iceland, if you don't have your livestock in the winter, you're done for. And that has evolved over time to a government-sponsored fox management program. So he is professionally hired by the Icelandic government. He gets paid per tail to protect these eider bird settlements. So he literally camps out and snipes these foxes to keep the balance of wildlife. And it's something that's controversial because people love Arctic foxes. But if you go to Sweden and Norway, the Arctic fox is endangered because the red fox preys on those. So he goes over there and shoots red foxes. So he's got this amazing relationship, and the detail and the depth of the relationship that he has with the landscape and the animals is unbelievable. And it's like, you talk about a guy coming from the land and living a life of the land. It's not any better than this. And he's intelligent, he's articulate, he's a talented photographer. His wife's a hunter. They're already teaching their daughter about the ways of their life. And this is one of those things where it's 100% tied up in the cultural traditions.
I was about to say exactly that. You know, it's sometimes clear, and I enjoy those folks the most.
Yeah.
And I've run into them, had them some on this show. It's like that hunting they just emote this cultural sensitivity to who they are, what they do. Hunting is that. Dushan talks about that, about his native country. Other folks like Wyman Menzer and Charles Rodney, people that have been on this show that have it just comes out of them. They breathe it. It is them. And so because it is them, it's part of the culture that they came up in. And man, that can be powerful. And I'm sure this can't wait to read it. I'm sure it's powerful as well.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. You should have him on sometime.
Oh yeah, hook me up. I'd love to talk to that dude.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Tyler. And go look at Modern Huntsman Volume 3. There are 2 other volumes that are, I'm sure, still available. And like I said, I appreciate your honesty and your openness about what you do and what you feel about your mission with this book. I think it's admirable.
Well, thanks, Ben. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on here.
All right, brother.
Cheers.
See ya.
I guess I grew up on an older road. A pedal to the metal always did.
That's it. That's all. Episode number 68 in the books. It was a good one. It's always this conversation we've had a lot on this podcast. It's really kind of the reason I started this podcast. What's our why for hunting? How do we communicate that why? How do we talk about our motivations? How do we talk about the narrative to the broader public? It's something that we'll continue to talk about here. I try not to overdo it in recent podcasts. We have talked about a lot of varied subjects, but it's always fun to return to this because it really is the thing that I think we could talk about forever. So thank you to Tyler Sharp. Go pick up Modern Huntsman, Volume 3, modernhuntsman.com. And thank you to Anthony Licata, my new boss. Hopefully he sticks around. His family moves to Montana. You're going to hear a lot from him in the coming weeks. What else do we got? What else? Oh, go to the MeatEater store. You should do that all the time, every day that you can. There's a lot of stuff there. There is I really want to highlight our new shirt, a relatively new shirt. It's been out for about a month or so. Our Aldo Leopold shirt. It says Aldo freaking Leopold on it. And it says that because he's a badass and he's one of the fathers of conservation. He's written some of the seminal works in our world. And you're going to be walking around with a illustrated picture of Aldo on your shirt. People are going to ask you, who's that? And you're going to get to tell them. So you're going to be a messenger for that man and his great works that have inspired all of us. So go to themeateater.com, click on the shop, and then go find that tee. And there's some other stuff there. There's the Hunting Collective Yeti tumbler. There is the Pro Nuance Anti-Bullshit t-shirt. There are some other logoed hoodies and hats and things like that there that I think are pretty cool that I hope you go check out and pick up. And what else? Oh, there's other stuff at the store. You're always going to want to go there and check those things out. But I also wanted to address before we get out of here the great feedback we got on last week's episode, number 67, on the Llama Larans. The Llama Larans are a subsistence hunting tribe on a small island in Indonesia. I've got dozens of emails here from people that really like that episode and really like Doug Bach-Clark. A lot of you had questions about his experience. I've sent some of those over to Doug, and hopefully he can get back to us, and we'll cover that on future podcasts, or I'll just email you guys back with his answers. So thanks for listening to that episode. We're going to leave you on this episode, number 68, leave you with some listener feedback, and then old number 7. So enjoy. See you next time. Bye.
Hey, this is Andrea, just calling to give some of my feedback. First off, I loved the interview with Charles Rodney. Such a cool guy, such a cool story. I love small game hunting. I love seeing different types of people and how they hunt and what they do and what their heritage is. I mean, it's just so cool to see something varying from the status quo and to see like an alternative version of American history, heritage hunting. So that was a real treat, and I felt like I was there with you guys, and what a great interview. So thank you for doing that. In conjunction with that interview, you guys were talking about people of color in the hunting world and how there aren't a lot of them and how we want more. And you also sort of tiptoed around it while you're doing it because people had such adverse reactions to it. And I think maybe we could investigate a little bit why do people have such knee-jerk reaction to the mere mention of people of color in the hunting and how they're, I mean, anyone with 2 eyes can see what the hunting world is. Come on, it's white men, and why is that? It hasn't, white men didn't invent hunting. So why don't people of color have access, or why aren't they welcomed into spaces? Why don't they have as rich of a heritage of hunting as, the average white man might, I think it's something to investigate, and I think just the emotions behind it are something to investigate. I would encourage people to ask themselves, why does it make them mad? Why? I'm really truly baffled and shocked and honestly appalled. They say don't read the comment section, and I honestly wish I wouldn't have had read it, but what's done is done, so I'd love to hear more about it. Thanks, bye.
Hey Ben, this is Nate Schneck from Western Minnesota calling in. Hey, I just want to tell you how much I appreciate your podcast. Really appreciating all the turkey content that you put out this spring. I am an adult onset turkey hunter. I've been hunting a lot of other stuff, mostly whitetail deer since I was a kid. But this was my first spring turkey hunting. Went out with the DNR program and NWTF kind of joint program. Got on a bird within 30 minutes of getting out my first morning and was able to get a really nice tom. And I am hooked. Keep up the good work. Keep it rolling. I wouldn't be opposed to more turkey talk during the summer. Thanks, man.
Thank you, Jack Daniels. Oh, number 7. Tennessee whiskey got me drinking in heaven. And angels start to look good to me. They're gonna have to deport me to the fiery deeps. Oh, to the fiery deeps. Drinking in the fiery deeps. Oh, to the fiery deeps. Drinking in heaven.
You ever get that feeling the walls closing in, the concrete jungle suffocating you? You crave some wide open spaces, the chance to connect with nature, maybe in a spot all your own. Well, head over to land.com. They've got ranches, forests, mountains, streams, you name it. Search by acreage. You can search by location. You can search by the kind of hunting and fishing you're dreaming of. Land.com. It is where the adventure begins. Hey guys, turkey season is in full swing right now, and if you are planning on getting after it, make sure to pick up some MeatEater Phelps turkey calls to stuff into the old turkey vest or into your fanny pack right now. I carry a few different things. I like to use mouth calls, and I like to use pot calls. Mouth calls or diaphragms, I like them because it gives you hand-free calling, meaning when you're working a bird up close, you can have your gun on your knee, finger on the trigger, ready to roll, and still be making turkey sounds. I like pot calls. I just like pot calls. I enjoy calling with a pot call. Whatever direction you go, including a box call, which I don't personally use too much, but they're fun and great, and I started out with them. Yanni, on the other hand, one of my main turkey hunting buddies, he loves box calls. And what's funny is I'll now and then look to him and give him the look that means get out your box call and find us a turkey. So it's not that I don't like them. I just have Yanni use his. Then I don't have to carry it. Go to Phelps Game Calls. Get calls that are made in the USA and get calls that'll get them close. Find yours at phelpsgamecalls.com today.